President Barack Obama calls inequality the defining issue of our time. And it's not simply a matter of race or of the growing gap between rich and poor. Increasingly, it's about opportunity, or the lack of it, to make life better and for the next generation to be better off than the previous one. The middle class is shrinking and the poor are losing the ability to move up. So what's creating this inequality and what's the impact? Here is your weekly West Block Primer. Success in life is a lot like fishing at night. It's all about what you can put on the hook. And that depends on how much you have and what you can afford. The rich, even the middle class, have the benefits of such things as higher education, activities for the kids, a rich social life, and above all, time. Time for friends, family, even vacations. The poor don't have much on their hooks except for the basics, with time dominated by jobs, if they can be found, and the daily grind of life. But the poor keep fishing because there has always, in the past, been a way for them to get a better boat and better bait, while the middle class always knew that tomorrow's fishing would be better than yesterday's fishing. But there are signs that this may be changing, and that the inequality of opportunity is getting worse, not better. To take this a little bit further, I'm joined now by Diana Carney. She is the Vice President of Research for Canada 2020, a think tank located here in Ottawa. Good to have you on the program. How much trouble is the middle class in?
If you look at the statistics, it doesn't look that bad in Canada. Things are changing at the top and at the bottom. The middle class isn't doing as bad as in some countries. But I think the key thing that's changed is the middle class feels like it's doing really badly. And if you look at polling recently, income inequality is a top issue. A majority of people polled now feel that they will be doing worse in a generation than they are doing now, which is a fundamental change.
So essentially what you're saying is the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and some might say, well, what's new with that? But essentially then, how did we get there? What do we do about it specifically? I mean, is it a matter of just transferring more wealth to the lower classes?
I don't think it is. This is not a zero sum, you give me some of yours. I think it's a question of investing in the institutions that have helped us be where we are and should help us maintain that position. So I'm thinking here education in particular, making sure our education is both good and relevant and brings everyone on board. And for the lower strata, it means providing the support that they can stay in education and really come out into the workforce, into good jobs.
You know, I was fascinated by a statement, the president of General Motors in the States, setting up car plants, for example, in the southern United States, talked about this coming age of sort of a global hourly wage, that China's moving up to it, we're moving down to it. It's $16.50 to $17 an hour with no benefits whatsoever. Even if we educate our workforce, are we headed towards that inevitable awful $17 an hour wage with no benefits? And what does that do? I mean, talk about the poor getting poorer. I can't imagine how you could carve out a life on that type of money.
I think this is a huge problem, the inexorable moving down of wages and the effect of globalization. And I wouldn't hesitate to guess as to whether we can combat that. But I think what we need to do is to be in the best position we can to combat that.
And that's through education. And providing a hand up, is what you're saying. It's
providing a hand up. It's making sure that people are agile in the workforce, that they're willing to move for good jobs if they do exist. And I think of obviously the jobs in the oil patch. And doing our best to make sure that we beat out those competitors from other countries.
You know, you've called it, Barack Obama has called it, the defining issue of our age, this income inequality. It's one thing to say that it's the defining issue, but how do you make it the defining issue? How do you make it the political issue of our time?
It's a very good question. It is questionable what it means to say it is the defining issue, but I think that the president was reflecting a growing concern, and this is what I've been trying to put my finger on in the work I do with Canada 2020, is to really understand what it is, why people feel so uneasy about it, particularly in this country. and what it means to their life. You know, the people who are facing declining wages and what they think they can do about it and what the role of government is in helping them to address this situation. And it seems to me that in Canada we lag a little bit in terms of viewing this as the defining issue. Possibly we're slightly complacent because we have had higher mobility even than the US, which prides itself in its mobility, and we've done pretty well. And I guess our concern at Canada 2020 is to help make sure that people understand why it's important, why we should value it, and what we can do about it now to make sure that in 20 years' time we're not looking back and thinking, boy, it's too late.
A lot of people listening to this might have picked up on your last name, Carney. There's a fellow called Mark who hitched his wagon to yours for greater success and so on. But you and the new governor of the Bank of England, who happens to be your husband, are headed over to London. You know, London's a pretty tough neighborhood. Tabloids have already called you an eco-warrior. Are you ready for the type of life that you're going to lead as one of the leading couples in Great Britain?
I'm not sure we can ever be ready for the British press. We'll do our best. I think we're both pretty confident in who we are. And I think certainly my husband was brought in to bring new ideas and fresh thinking to the Bank of England. And I would hope that I can bring some ideas from Canada in the policy environment and learn from the UK, but also inject perhaps some new thinking in some of the areas with which we're mutually dealing with the same issues. And in fact, income inequality is a huge one in the UK. It's been a big priority for the Deputy Prime Minister, and they have a commission on what they call social mobility. And I hope that I can continue working in this area and see if we can make some headway. Okay, and just because your husband gets this question all the time, it's fair to ask it to you. Have you got political ambitions? Do you want to run for the leadership of the Liberal Party of Canada? I thought everyone wanted to run for that job. I think I'll be doing some other things for the foreseeable future. For the foreseeable future, my gosh, the door's open once again. Anyway, Diana Carney, Vice President of Research for Canada 2020. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Tom.